Good morning. We're jumping all the way to Genesis chapter 11 today. Yesterday, Genesis chapter 6, we saw the destruction of the world with Noah, where God flooded the earth and He saved Noah's family, and He began to reproduce from that point. Now, please understand that just because everybody's gone doesn't mean the problem's been solved. The problem was ultimately not with the people. The problem was with the sin. And sin is not so much what you do, but it is what is in you. It says in Romans 5:12 that through one man's sin, death entered the world and therefore spread to all men because all sin. The reason that you and I sin is because we are sinners. And in Christ we are justified sinners, and He's paid the price for us. Well, in Genesis chapter 11, you see the sin continue. It says in Genesis 11:1, now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as the people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they settled there. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they made brick and stone and bitumen for mortar. And they said, come, let us build for ourselves a city with a tower whose top reaches the heavenlies, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed all over the face of the earth. No, the intention of man was to make a name for himself, to do something great so that he would be noticed. But God's intention has always been that we would make His name great among the nations. In the book of Malachi, you saw in your devotion that God's desire is that His name would be made great. Let me ask you a question. Is your desire to make your name great? Is your desire to make His name great? Is your desire to constantly be looking after your reputation, or is your desire to constantly be living for His glory so that His name would be made great among the nations? It seems to me that we all wake up with that option every day. That God's desire was never for them to build for themselves a city, but God's desire was for them to build Him a city. We see in the book of Acts chapter 2 that God sends us all over the earth. And in Acts chapter 1:8, He says, you go be my witnesses. God's not asking you to go out and protect yourself, and God's not asking you to go out and be a witness for yourself. He's asked you and I to be witnesses for Jesus Christ, that we would go into all the nations and tell them of the mighty things that God has accomplished in Christ. As you go out today, don't let your story be, this is what I've done for God, but let your story be, this is what God has done for me. He sent His only Son to reconcile me through faith to Himself, and now He's empowering me to be His witness in Jerusalem, Judea, and even to the uttermost parts of the earth.